Operations Committee meeting. We're in the Upper Dublin High School Cardinal Room, and we're calling the meeting to order. Mr. Chmielewski, who ordinarily chairs this meeting, was not able to be here tonight, so I will chair for the evening. First, any announcements or communications?
Not this evening.
Thank you. And are there minutes?
Yes, the minutes for the October 26th Operations Committee meeting are available for any comments, corrections, or edits.
Okay, thank you. And anyone who has any, please get those to Brooke. We will start with the reports and recommendations. The first thing is administration outbuilding repairs. Mr. Lester.
Yes, this is something we discussed at our last Operations Committee meeting. Did not bring it to the full board meeting, so I still had some questions after receiving the bids back. The pricing came back higher than I would like to see. So just to recap, the bid to repair the outbuilding, it's a 1,600 square foot building. The price came back in for repairs at $115,400, and that was including adding a concrete floor that didn't exist. We're looking at that, and that's roughly $72 a square foot for repair. I had some conversations with township codes, fire marshal, because one of our concerns is if we were to tear this building down, replace it, what are we going to be faced with for land development cost, sprinkler cost with a new building? Any paving that we would have to do, we'd be forced to do a driveway. And surprised to find out that if we were to go with a building slightly, either same size, slightly smaller, that we would not have to do all the land development. We'd still have engineering costs involved, approximately $25,000 for an engineer to look at the land, make sure our runoff is correct. But we would not have to sprinkler a new building under 1,200 square feet, or 1,200 square feet or under, which would have been a major cost in putting a larger building in. It would have required us to run a water main to the building, get electric to the building just to store some outdoor equipment. So I started talking to some pre-engineered building companies. There's one locally in Flowertown does pre-engineered steel buildings. Another Conestoga Buildings does pole barns, and they do work with a lot of municipalities and school districts. The building itself was cheaper, around $50,000 for the building kits and to have installation. So I started adding up the other costs that we'd be faced with. We'd be looking at approximately $15,000 in demolition costs for the existing building. We would be looking at some engineering work for slabs. The pre-engineered steel building, we'd have to have an architect design a structural slab that they can set the building on and pour the concrete, which I figure would be around $20,000, and some contingencies for anything unknown that we would hit. And the prices right now to do a building are in the area of $100 a square foot. So projected cost for a brand new building would be around $120,000. But it would be a slightly smaller building, but still usable.
And it would be, a steel structure. It wouldn't sort of fit in with the architecture of the rest of the farmhouse complex, presumably.
Depending how it's laid out, a pole barn, which again is not steel, just pre-manufactured wood beams, very easy to install. Looking at some of the kits that are available, they do very much look like the buildings we have. We could paint them the same colors, have the same color roof that we have on the buildings. So we could make a building fit in aesthetically.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I assume that your recommendation is that we renovate the existing building, but I do think it was a good review to at least
right now, looking at the cost, renovating the building, I'm actually leaning more towards maybe rejecting the bids and going with a newer building.
Okay.
The existing building wouldn't be totally enclosed, because if we were to totally enclose it during renovations, we'd be forced to comply with updated sprinkler codes, which again would be trenching out to Fort Washington Avenue, running a water main,
right,
installing a sprinkler system, which would probably be, I would think, in the $50,000 range on top if we did fully enclose the existing building.
But being smaller, that's okay?
It's 400 square foot less, but if it's a workable 400 square foot, I think it would, we could deal without that for what we're storing in there.
So your recommendation would be to take this forward to the full board before we get further to design, or did you want to get a little more specific about?
I can
what
get
we're
more
proposing
specific.
first?
I think the issue that we have now, do we award the bid that we had for repairs, or do we reject the bids?
Well, I think if you're not as interested in it, I would reject them.
Can I ask a question? Are there any other differences you haven't mentioned yet about between the usability of one versus the other? If we're not looking at costs, the pros and cons of each one in terms of functional specs.
Functionality, one of the things I like about the pre-manufactured building is with the, we can get some larger openings. We can probably drive larger equipment in than we can if we renovate the existing building. The existing building, you're held to about 8-foot height. The pre-engineered buildings are 10-foot high through the doors. So we can get some larger pieces, and it would have been very close for our tractors getting in, but now we could definitely park our tractors inside a new building.
Is there any better protection from the elements or any other things like that?
A new building would have better protection. If we did repairs on the existing building, we would end up with a chain link gates over there. And so you would be able to see what we had inside. It wouldn't be a totally enclosed storage. 1,200 square foot pre-manufactured building would come with a sliding door that could be secured.
Yeah, it sounds a little more secure.
And yes,
Less of an inviting,
there'd be no openings for people to look into to see what is stored in there.
Yeah, it sounds to me like the 1,200 square foot new building ends up being more functional for roughly the same money based on these approximations. I do have some concern over the aesthetics because I think what we have with the farmhouse complex now is a unique property, and I wouldn't want to lose that in terms of both the value to the community, but the future resale value of the property as well. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would encourage you to go back and pursue that option a little further, reject the bids, and see what we can make happen.
Okay.
I agree.
Now, just to be clear, if we were to reject the bids, does that mean in any way that we are now no longer able to pursue that option, period? Or are there rules around that?
No, we'd be able to rebid again,
Redid it, yeah,
Okay.
you'd have to put
being
it
that
out.
this did come in higher than we expected as well.
Yeah, okay. So we're not even locking ourselves into anything?
No,
by-
we're not.
Yeah, okay. Then it seems like a no-brainer.
And we certainly could reject bids,
Right.
just because they did come in higher than we anticipated.
Okay, great.
How many bids did you get?
We received 3.
Okay. And GKO spec'd this out?
GKO came in, they brought their structural engineer to the site. They reviewed the condition of the building, so we knew we were making the proper repairs. Not alone, it does need a roof, but we wanted to make sure that the structure itself would hold a new roof. So there were some recommended repairs in this bid for repairs.
One other point I want to be clear on. If we do reject it, even though the bids did come in higher than we anticipated, there were some reasons for the variance.
Yes.
So if we went out again using the same specifications and rebid it, I would not anticipate that we would have a tremendous savings, if at all,
Yeah.
particularly as time passes. So I just
Oh,
want to be
yeah.
clear on that.
Understood. Okay, so are we, anyone else have anything to say about that one? So you're set, Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Maple Glen air conditioning options.
I was hoping to have a written report on this, but I wasn't able to get them. But I lengthy conversation with the engineers today, emails with commitments from them. And the good news is we found out the piping in the building and a majority of the mechanical equipment will accept air conditioning. So we can run chilled water through the entire building to air condition. The only piece of equipment that will not currently handle air conditioning is the air handler for the gymnasium. So that's one of the reasons they don't have the report finished. They're trying to find some options Can the existing unit be retrofitted with a chilled water coil? Would it be better just to replace the air handler? Another option I wanted them to take a look at, would it be better to have a separate air conditioning system other than a chiller? So that way, since when we do run the gymnasiums on the weekends at night during the summer without any activity in the rest of the building, it would be a little more functional just to run one unit as a standalone system. So they are the options they're looking into. The price they gave me for a complete air conditioning, a number they feel very comfortable with, was in the range of $675,000 to $775,000, and that would be a 100% air conditioned building. Including the gym, yes.
So, all right, okay, so that would be a new handler and the gym and all that?
Yeah, whatever the option would be,
Whatever.
they're allocating $100,000 to whatever the design would be and equipment would be for the gymnasium would be about $100,000. I think it could be less depending on what they decide to do. If it was just adding a chilled water coil, it'd probably be less. But in this range of costs they gave us, included is a 7% design fee. And they're looking at a 400-ton air-cooled chiller that would sit outside where we have the current cooling tower. They would just remove the cooling tower and add this air-cooled chiller, run the piping into the building. They're also looking at replacement of all the three-way valves throughout the building. Since we do have variable speed pumps, there really is no need to have three-way valves. So we can get efficiencies for pumping the water through the building by letting the valves close off and letting the pumps back off with the variable speed drives. And they're also looking, we know there's going to be insulation that needs to be added, some piping over some valves. This includes also the accessories to run the chiller. Any pumps that would be needed, electric would be in there. And there'd be and some controls programming to make, to reprogram the units in the classrooms. They're not looking at replacing the existing control system, but more modifying it to allow air conditioning in the classrooms.
Is the controls in each classroom, are they specific to that classroom? So a teacher can adjust
Yes.
within a range?
Yes, the thermostats are, they're preset, and there is a range that they can deviate from the preset.
Right, but because of the two pipes, if one teacher's cold,
We will have those
No.
days, yes, in the spring. Yes, we have to make that conscious decision. This is, we're turning the heat off for the rest of the year. We're only going to run air conditioning now. Or in the fall, October the 15th is when we have to have the heat. So if we had a warm day after October 15th, we wouldn't be running the air conditioning. The switchover takes time, and we wouldn't be able to have heating one day and cooling the next and back to heating. It would just be impractical.
And if they were to do something separate in the gym, is that just the gym, or is it all the spaces in that end
Just
of
the
the
gym.
building? It's really just the gym?
Just the gym, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But this includes the gym.
This price does include the gym. They just don't have a final design. There's just still too many options to look at with the gym. They're waiting back from some of the manufacturers. The actual manufacturer of the existing air handler, can this be easily modified to accept air conditioning, or does it need to be replaced?
And when you've talked about the other buildings having a separate system for the large common spaces, that's not just the gym, right? That would be...
That would be gym and cafeteria, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the cafeteria unit is at Maple Glen. It can accept cooling already.
Okay.
what did we have in the long-range plan? Did we identify each building separately? The 5-year plan?
Yes.
So what did we allocate for Maple Glen? Do you
I
remember?
forget, I don't have it off my head.
I was gonna look for it, but then,
I have to pull that up.
okay, yeah, maybe.
But it's within, I'm pretty sure it's within the.
It may be a little on the high, it may be a little higher.
Okay, so
Maybe
if we were comfortable with this, when could it be started? Over the summer? Over this?
Yes, the plan would be, if we can commit to them, this is the direction we want to go, I can get a proposal from them to lock in with their design services. This would be something we would bid out early winter. We'd be looking for the February, latest March timeframe, and construction on this would begin this summer.
Right. But because of that, and we don't have the engineering contract to discuss tonight, and I would certainly need to get legal review, solicitor's
yeah.
review. If we can move that quickly for December 11th, and that's a big if with
Yeah.
Thanksgiving coming up, we might try to have that before the entire board to start moving that along so they can get the work done and we can get the bid out.
But I suppose we will put this in line with what our projected 5-year plan shows, and then see what other things are also in there.
This would
Right.
actually be, I think, a step above what we planned for Maple Glen. Maple Glen originally started out as a replacement and not picking up any spaces, but as we start to look into the repairs, we're going to be repairing old equipment, and it just did not make that much sense to do that.
So my real question was, what did Dewey Engineering have in the comprehensive plan for, not what was in the 5-year? You're right, in the 5-year. perhaps we were
Looking at the comprehensive now, they actually replace chiller's undersized. They had $325,000 to just replace the chiller.
Right.
Yes, there are other. I have to go through quite
But
a
that
big
goes back to
list.
2014.
That's okay.
And the scope of work has changed.
Has significantly
Really
increased.
changed. I mean,
Yes.
we,
I think there was an additional. Dewey Engineer had an additional $354,000 for replacing the three-way valves and
All right.
and modulating. So if you look at just the chiller and some of the valve work, we're right in that range.
already.
But this 700,000-ish that we're talking about right now was not in this year in the 5-year plan. It was in some future year, right? So if we were to talk
Correct.
about accelerating this, we would need to hear what is it we're not doing this year.
Right.
So I think what we're asking, I guess, for the next operations committee, obviously we'll have had another month to get the engineering report all locked down, but in addition to that, what are the budgetary implications before we pull any triggers?
I think this was the big item we were looking for to come up with our cost for summer work of 2018.
2018, right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Looks like it was September when we did the 5-year.
Looks like 480,000 in 2018. The two items replaced the chiller and the HVAC repairs.
Yes, looking at the two of those, that looks like that we had roughly 477,000 allocated for next year for Maple Glen.
And I don't have that up in front of me, but that 477,000 was just those two HVAC-related items.
Correct.
Okay. So there's
So next up, we have
300,000
extra
yeah.
in this that we would then have to offset by something else that we might be
That's
planning
correct.
for. So we
We
can,
did have a $100,000 contingency
Yeah.
as well that we have not addressed.
I don't want to make that statement now. I think we need to look at our finances and see what we have. I mean, we could offset.
Yeah.
Or we could reshuffle. I mean, I felt we were not, it was difficult for us to dedicate the amount that we wanted to do. But if we have good financial news, if our fund balances remain solid or is more, there's always the possibility of not doing 100%
Right, but
offset.
Yeah,
we'd be bidding this in the
Right.
spring before we know a lot of that detail.
Right.
but that's also why these projections are living documents,
Oh,
if you will.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah, we could, if the project were scaled down to meet the smaller chiller, then be looking at just as large expense in the future again to re-add what's needed to continue cooling the building, the rest of the building.
Yeah, do these things need to happen in conjunction?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
okay,
they need to be coordinated.
okay.
Just to refresh everyone's memory, what are some of the other projects we talked about for the summer had to do with doors, primarily doors keying, correct? Replace interior
Yes.
doors? And, perhaps that would have to be delayed. We won't have to have such a formal bidding process. We don't have to have an engineering study for that. A lot of this can be purchased from CoStarz, correct?
Yes,
If
we're
we do
working
the
with the
doors.
company. We're working with the company, and they do not need to know an answer for surveying the doors until April.
And if, again, if necessary, we could cut back on the scope of that project and still move forward with the larger job and to stay within budget. The board did on Monday night transfer already $1.5 million, so we're kind of funded for 2018.
And maybe Dr. Ludwig said this already, but we already, in the plan, had 357,000 in the plan,
Yes.
Yeah,
for
plus
next year.
120.
plus 120, plus 120, right, for
Right.
Maple Glen.
Correct.
So we're talking possibly maybe another 200,000 to get complete air conditioning in Maple Glen.
Correct.
Correct.
And that would be including the gym.
And the gym.
There's $100,000 in this cost is just for the gymnasium.
But we should do it at the same time. So that would remove it from, did we not have the gym at Maple Glen's gym was proposed at this time too, for this summer?
No,
Where?
we did not have anything in for the gymnasium. And the gymnasium was not in the 5-year plan as well.
Okay, I see, right. Okay.
Yeah, we had concerns at the onset of this project, whether or not the piping in the building would be able to handle it. And after they came in, did their evaluation, did their calculations, it supported that, yes, we can air condition this entire
Right.
building with the existing piping.
It was just the other 3 buildings that we penciled in 2021
Correct.
to do the large areas. Gotcha.
Anyone else? Okay, so that, then, next step is you'll come back, next operations, with more detail on this
Yes.
project. Okay. Great. All right, let's move on. Maple Glen sprinkler head replacement.
Reported several months back during inspections, we discovered, our contractor discovered, we had a significant number of sprinkler heads that were recalled. Unfortunately, we're no longer eligible to go back to Central Sprinkler to recover the costs for replacing the heads. So we started working with Keystone Fire Protection. They're the ones providing our inspections. I've also been number checking with another contractor that I had worked with in the past. The latest is we did a complete survey of the building, including the attics. And we went from approximately 480 sprinkler heads that we thought needed to be replaced to 754. So it turns out the attic sprinkler heads at the very top of the ridge are on the recall list and need to be replaced as well. The budget costs that we're receiving from them to do this, and this is a company that works as a CoStar's contractor as well, was $56,551 is what we're going to need to make those repairs. This would either be a spring break or a summer project. This is a job that we would want to do, schedule with them in advance and have everything set up and just give them an empty school where they can drain the sprinkler system for several days on end and just run through and replace everything at one time.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, you got to do it.
Yes.
I mean, we have to, do you have any questions on it?
No, it's unfortunate that it came this way, but we have to do it, and so we have to do it.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I don't think there's an extreme danger of our condition right now. The reason these sprinkler heads are recalled is Central Sprinkler, which has since been purchased, used O-rings inside their sprinkler heads, and the condition of the water in the pipes with the cutting oils that they use for the iron pipe would cause the O-rings to swell. It's not saying they're not going to go off, they just can't guarantee it goes off at their design pressure, which is extremely low. Our pressure is significantly higher, so the chance of a sprinkler head not activating during a fire is very slim in our situation.
Yeah. I was going to say, does the insurance company know? Don't
Well,
tell them.
that among other things is why we have to do it,
Yeah, exactly.
even if, the
Yes.
risk is low, we have to.
The
do
risk
it.
is low, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is time for community input. If anyone would like to address the board, please come to the podium, state your name and where you live. I'm not sure you're on, Stan.
Make sure you're on. Yes, it is. Use this one.
Bob, great job on that, getting that information. That's, all those estimates, that was really good. Can the building be heated if it was new?
Go ahead and ask, and then we'll try to answer.
Maybe the existing stormwater infrastructure that's in place currently at Maple Glen can handle the new, the 1,200 square feet. Also, does the existing building that's there now have any stormwater management? And if we do decide to go with a new building, perhaps the paving could be pervious or stone. If it's pervious, it could be a nice educational tool for the elementary schools, for putting in, you can pour a bucket of water on there and it disappears, and they'd be amazed about that. And then for the design of any stormwater, if it's needed, maybe Tom Fountain could do it at a per fee basis or something, might be able to save some money there. But I think it's a good idea with the, that if it was totally enclosed, it would be great security. And then, as you said, you can get a bigger door so you can drive in equipment that, that'd be great. So that was all. And then, of course, the concrete floor, that'd be way better than what's there now. So I thank you for doing all that extra work. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you. Seeing nobody else, we will close community input and answer those questions. Bob?
Yes, starting at the top, a building like this could be heated if we chose to. Right now, we weren't looking to heat this building because all we're storing in here is grounds equipment that's not in season. We're looking for a place right now to start taking some of our field equipment to park it so it's out of the way for the season. And in the summer, we need a place to put all of our snow equipment, our snow blowers, our snow plows. So we're more looking for a secure, covered location to keep equipment out of the elements. So really, the necessity for heating is not there.
Does the existing building have electrical service?
It looked like at one time it had an overhead wire going to it for a few lights that
So,
were
no.
inside. So no. It had the light bulb hanging from the wire.
And would you be planning to run electrical service there?
At this time, it's with the wide opening for what we're using it for. The necessity is not.
So
there
even
currently. But
fully
it could be added
enclosed,
later.
even fully enclosed, it'll be
Even fully enclosed,
light
yes.
enough to do whatever has to be done in there.
Yes.
Okay.
And for the amount of times that we're in there, even something portable LED would be more than enough for what we need. It's something that can be added in the future, but nothing that we're looking at now. Addressing the water infrastructure, the design of stormwater management. When I spoke to Paul Leonard, Joe Fielder with the township, and what was discussed, if we're not increasing our impervious space, we're sticking close to the footprint. And because the fact when we did the renovations and the additions to this property to make it the administration building in the fields, a stormwater management system was installed. We do have a detention basin on the property. That's everything they're taking into consideration and saying that they would grant us land development waivers. Was talking with an engineer, with Schumacher Engineering in Abington. They do a lot of work locally and for the township, and they're very familiar. Even if a stormwater management or the land development is waived, we're still going to have to document what we're doing to make sure we're still conforming with the plan that's there. So there still will be engineering fees. What that eliminates us from that was filing. So the legal fees, the filing fees. So it does significantly cut down what land development costs would have been. So we just need to make sure we're covered. And that's why I was giving an estimate what that number could be. It could be lower. I don't expect it would be any higher than the numbers I had used.
Do you have any opinions on permeable paving?
It's something definitely look into. I wasn't, to get a bit more of an apples to apples comparison on a building, construction
Yeah.
cost, I didn't look into that. It's something, just trying to keep the cost similar. It's not as necessary for us at this point. We could even consider moving it closer to the parking lot, so we need less space. So we do have a little wiggle room with the newer building as well.
And, I don't know if Tom Fountain services are available on a per fee basis, but we do have a variety of engineers we have access to anyway. But if he was interested, if the township was interested in contracting his services out, I'm sure we could add that to the list of engineers.
Yeah, and the engineers I spoke were with Schumacher Engineering. They're located, I believe they're on Edge Hill Road. And they do a good deal of work within the township.
Did we get it all there, Mr. Rofsky? All right. Okay, so that, I think, brings us to the end of the agenda. We will adjourn. The next Operations Committee meeting is Thursday, December 21st at 6 p.m. right here in the Cardinal Room. And we will take a brief recess and reshuffle for the Finance Committee meeting.